and EA did it.
Some of you have seen this before. I'm so sorry, it's pink for some reason.
It's because the wall's pink.
No, I've projected in here before, and it should be a lovely light gray with a color photo. So
There it is.
There it is.
Oh,
What did you do?
Oh.
Turn that again.
It's the connection.
All right, help me out here, friends. What do I do?
It's
Which
probably
connection?
the
Very
connection to your
interesting.
computer, but it's just not getting all of it.
Right.
Or is it this?
Something like.
You just had it.
Yeah.
Yes, you did have
I
it.
think it's just not,
I don't know.
try that.
This
Well-
is all Bill's equipment, so I don't want to.
And we can live with pink.
Can you live with the
Sure.
It's fine.
We got a glimpse of the gray.
It's sort of the Easter eggs.
Yeah, right.
There you go, there you go.
All right, so what we're going to do is in 10 minutes, I'm going to fly through this.
Okay.
And share with you a little bit about the Hunt Club, because there have been questions, and certainly at Selectmen meetings, I know, John, you had a question about how the hunt proceeded when the train was coming through, and I can answer that question for you.
Thank you.
But the point is just to share a little bit about the Hunt Club, and also to share with you our perspective on the potential rail trail. Okay? So the Norfolk Hunt was established in 1895. It's one of the oldest fox hunts in the United States. We began in Dedham and then thankfully moved to Dover in 1903. We have the oldest fox hunting kennels in the United States that are currently in use. That's a huge kudo to not only the club but to the town for keeping that sort of legacy going. Hounds are what distinguish a club from a riding club, and a fox hunting club. A riding club has horses only, a hunt club has hounds and horses. And our core territory is in the Charles River Valley area, as you well know. We hunt twice a week on Tuesdays and Saturdays in April, May, September, October, and November. We also hunt on all major holidays, and we hound school on Thursdays with riders. So we're going out basically 3 times a week, plus on the holidays. Hound schoolings with either people on horses or on foot with the hounds, so training the hounds, happens 6 days a week, 52 weeks a year. So our hounds are by far our most hardworking employees. The other things we do in the equestrian community are things like the spring hunter case, summer trail rides, fox hunting clinics, and a variety of horse shows and other events. Carol, I didn't see you over there. You're seeing this for the second time as well.
In pink, though.
In pink, so, you know, technicolor. We've been an active member of the community. We have worked with 12 land preservation partners. These are conservation organizations in the area. We do an annual year-round, we do year-round land maintenance and an annual cleanup day. Some of this is paid by people that we employ to do work, and tens of thousands of hours of volunteer time. Grounds for Celebration is our biennial fundraiser. All the money from that event goes to preserving and protecting land. We do Polo in the Country. And then the Thanksgiving Day hunt has become a really big deal where people come out and tailgate in the morning and then watch us take off. We've been part of the fabric of Dover for a very long time. The residents of Dover open their land to us out of respect and the tradition of the hunt. Our landowner relations are very, very cherished and very special to us. The hunt is the backbone of the equestrian community. We are the de facto leaders of the equestrian community in this area. We're featured on the town website, in the town master plan, and of course realtors promote Dover as hunt country, as we all know. We have a very rich history of protecting open space. Our founders were prescient about the need to preserve and protect the land. And they are names that we all know from Massachusetts history. And you know these names, Warren and Saltonstall and Channing. All of them contributed to Dover's legacy and to this commitment to open space. This picture, you can't really see, but it's hysterical. It's from around 1910. And we would be kicked out of the hunt field if we rode like this today, because you're not allowed to ride 4 across over a wall. It's just so dangerous, but those boys didn't really care. Some of the other names that you know about, our legacy of preserving open space, places like United Woodlands and Poisett Farm that were donated or made possible by Amelia Peabody, who was perhaps our most famous member of the club. Other families who were members and supporters are gifted and made land possible in the Dover Valley. So again, a very rich legacy of history. We also have land in trust. And the land in trust is in Dover and Medfield. And this is our most important hunt territory. A private trust owns the property in both towns, and we essentially lease it, and our rent is to pay taxes and maintain the land. The condition of that trust is that it is used for fox hunting purposes. The acreage in Dover includes the Norfolk Hunt kennels, the stables, the paddocks, the apartments, the land across from the stables, and then there is a trail network and other woodlands. You've probably heard about it a million times on Center Street. In Medfield, the parcel also includes open space, fields, woodland, and of course the Norfolk Hunt steeplechase course. And the trust land in both towns, interestingly, is connected by the trail that is adjacent to the railbed. If access to this trust land is restricted, that would be a huge issue for the hunt because conceivably that land could no longer be used for fox hunting and it would then be developed.
Shall we hold our questions to the end, or?
Probably,
Okay.
because I'll just raise it and I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions. so,
Okay.
yeah. We continue to do this sort of work today. Our fixture cards have opportunities for people to volunteer. We encourage the community to come out. And of course, all of this is done at no expense to taxpayers. And additional land in Dover is donated and supported by and protected by Norfolk Hunt members. Places like the recent acquisition of Beacon Hill, for example. We've always been very inclusive in our spirit, sharing the land with contemplative walkers and hikers and cross-country skiers and bird watchers. The equestrian community has been very well knit into the fabric of Dover in terms of other people who enjoy passive recreational use. The Dover Valley is very, very important. It is the critical corridor that connects the area behind the Hunt Club to private land up on Farm Street, toward Beacon Hill, Chase Woodlands and Peters Reservation as you're heading over toward Sherburne and South Natick, and then in the other direction to Medfield. The trails, and that trail in particular that I was referencing, is very important in connecting that trust land that we're talking about. We believe that a developed railbed will effectively bifurcate Norfolk's hunt country. Multiple trails intersect and cross over the railbed. Horses, hounds, and people are not allowed to cross the developed railbed due to the risk of cappings on the side and not wanting to unsettle those because of the DEP best practices. Equestrian use of the trail system will be severely affected. The days that we see on TV of having a Western pleasure horse tied to a hitching post are not the sorts of things that we do here. Horses are creatures of flight. They are sensitive to unexpected sounds and shapes and noise and things happening. And large numbers of bicyclists and unleashed dogs and strollers and the like really can create a serious safety hazard for horses and for riders. A stone-dust road through with the region's trail bikes on it, and the fact that the new fat tire bikes are becoming so prevalent, as much as people are commenting that, gee, a fat tire bike wouldn't use this trail, it would be a great access point for all the other trails that are in the Dover Valley. So I ride through there on a regular basis and I see the fat tire bikes out there. So that's an important consideration as we look at all of this. Signage we know doesn't work. If you're going to ride, you're going to ride. If you're going to take your bike somewhere, you're going to take your bike somewhere. And what we're concerned about is that the frequency of use by bicyclists is going to inadvertently contribute to an open space loss. The Dover Valley is currently the safest place for riders to go in the Dover area. And it's important for us to recognize that and that the users in that area, and I run into not only people who might be on a bike, but someone who's running or someone who's walking their dog, they coexist beautifully with equestrians, and we're concerned about perhaps that coming to an end. The impact is also very strong on the fox hounds. So let's talk about hounds for a second. We have 41 hounds. They are nationally known. We have won the best pack in New England last year. Our hounds are very well trained, but training a foxhound is a year-round discipline. These are not house pets. They're wonderful, wonderful animals, and they're great with kids, but they are highly trained athletes. We train and exercise, as I said earlier, 6 days a week. And coming out of the kennels, we will use that trail that's adjacent to the railroad. either go south to Netfield or north toward Channing Pond in Springdale. And the Channing Pond I'm referring to is the Channing Pond that's on the McCoy's property. Hounds, as you know, don't run single file. You've seen the pictures. They are not leash trained. And as a matter of fact, as they're running on the path, what we'll do in terms of training is take the younger hounds and couple them with a mechanism to the older hounds so that that knowledge of fox hunting is passed down through generations. So you'll see that if you ever see the hounds going out. We can't guarantee hound behavior. We have a zero tolerance policy. If they do misbehave, they are moved along to a family who will let them sit on the couch. We're concerned that hounds are not going to be able to work a scent in the woods of the Dover Valley, because what happens is, if a hound is on the scent of a deer or a coyote or another animal, it's a hound that's been trained to hunt. It's going to chase and go after that scent. And that means that it can cross over that drill bed through the embanked contaminants. And in order to get that hound back, a horse with a rider on the horse has to follow to bring the hound back into the pack. That's how the sport works. There are what we call whippers in, and they are outriders essentially that keep the hounds moving in a direction. And if the hound takes off, that rider goes after them and brings them back to the pack. So we feel this is a risk too great. If the trust land becomes inaccessible and the Dover Valley can't be traveled by horses and hounds, then the Norfolk Hunt and the equestrian community at large will be restricted from the land that we've cherished and maintained for over a century, and we're concerned that that legacy could disappear. If equestrians are limited in their use of the land by accelerated use of bicycles or lots of unleashed dogs, then this inclusive group of neighbors are being essentially excluded from the land that they've shared for over 100 years. There's no legal way to ensure that this remains a Dover-only trail. We had a lovely meeting last night with the Friends of the Greenway, and we talked about some of these issues. And in spite of assurances and the integrity of the advocates for the rail trail, once this is in town, we're going to be pressured to expand it. And certainly the fact that we have options on the table for an extended piece from the edge of town to the far end of town, we're asking people to keep their eyes open. This really is the first step to a multi-town trail, and we are very concerned that the days of quiet walks for people and horses will conclude. We share a wonderful equestrian heritage with Dover. We have a very, very serious commitment to open space and passive recreational use. We're asking why take the risk of losing what we love so much about our community. So that's all I have in my hot pink presentation. And Robin, I'm sorry to cut you off, but certainly there's
No, and
as
then,
much time as you want for questions.
all right. So I have a number of questions because I'm a little bit confused by maybe just what I absorbed in various presentations. So if you could just humor me and explain to me, I understand, and I actually went to see, there are trails that run parallel to the rail bed, sort of in Donnelly Estates there, and I would imagine those are the trails you use. Is that correct?
All the trails back there we use, yes.
Right, and they run parallel to the
There's
road.
a main trail that does run parallel to the
Okay,
track.
so currently, is the rail bed being crossed over?
Mhm.
So you cross over the rail bed. So then, right now, the horses and the dogs are potentially subject to contamination as well, right? Hounds. Because I'm just trying to understand, so the rail bed runs, your trails, do you own the trails that run parallel? I'm not sure who they belong to.
Most of the trails that are in the Dover Valley are, many of them have been gifted or made possible by the Hunt, but the Hunt does not own them. The
Okay,
Hunt has also purchased some land there, and that land is either protected by DLCT or Concom.
okay.
And I have a map of that I can
Right, so-
delineate if needed.
So do we know whether those trails that run parallel to the rail bed are owned by private owners or whether they were owned by the MBTA. We don't know yet.
It's almost all public land, but on that.
What does that mean, public land?
It would be owned by the town, the Conservation Commission now.
Okay.
Originally, this was land that was owned by, well, there was a hunt club president, Edmund Rice, he gave a lot of land.
So-
But that basically, it's land that's been gifted, but it's been gifted to the town, and Conservation Commission has the great share of that next to the.
So when we do the title search, that will
I
come,
think that Robin's asking for who owns the land that runs.
well, I'm just
behind
wondering.
Parallel.
Right, so,
along the
well,
tracks.
well, I have,
MBTA.
I've heard this presentation a couple of times, so I have a couple of questions. I'm just trying to get my arms around how these trails are used. So if you just humor me, it's very simplistic. So currently, because I've seen the pack of hounds come out of the stables, which are on the corner of Hunt, right? I've seen packs of dogs walking down there, so I don't know where they come from. And then you move on, you turn onto the trail, and I believe it's the trail that runs parallel to the rail bed, and I've seen trainers go with the dogs. And then in your presentation, you also talk about the rail bed intersecting some of the lands where you train the dogs. So my question is, do you cross over the rail bed today?
Presently, what will happen is if a hound.
So that's just a yes or
Sure.
no, right?
Yeah, and that if a hound strays the other side, a rider gets over there to head
So,
that hound back.
just-
Yes. So
I'm
do
having a
go-
really
but-
hard
but
time.
They don't ride purposely along the rails themselves.
No, I'm not asking that, but in the presentation and in presentations that you've made previously, I'm just trying to understand how the rail bed interferes, so to speak, or with the training of the hounds. So my question is, if you own property on either side, do you have to cross over the rail bed today to get to the various trails that you utilize for training the dogs or for the hunt?
Usually when they cross over, it's to get a stray hound back.
Okay,
onto the
so then,
side.
is it a correct statement to make? Is my understanding correct that you don't need to cross over the
Yes.
rail beds
That's
to,
not correct.
to get to, all right. So you just,
But maybe I can explain that to you, and I should have brought a map, because I have one in the car, and if you want, I'll happily bring it up.
okay,
for you.
all right.
The land that you're referring to is owned by the town. It is managed by either DLCT or Concom. We use all of the equestrian trails in that area, and there's a vast network of equestrian trails.
Right, which is
This-
on
the
the
trail
other
that
side
I'm-
of the,
No.
no,
No, the trail that I'm talking about, that we mentioned in this presentation, is adjacent, but it also crosses over the rail bed. And there are bridle trails, so if this was the rail bed right here, and you were on the trail here, let's say, you could cross it here and go over in one area.
Okay.
You could go this way and go around a bunch of trails and then cross it somewhere
Okay.
else. You could go up a hill, down a hill.
So when you say cross it, you're talking about crossing the rail bed?
Rail bed, yes.
Yes.
So does the hunt club have a use agreement with the MBTA, or can anybody just cross the rail bed?
Well, I think it's just as anybody else would cross the road,
I-
whatever they do today.
Because
They've
is
never-
some
they've
of,
never- they've never
okay,
prohibited that.
because if that's part of the concern, you know, certainly if we were at some point to develop the rail trail, you know, we would certainly want everybody at the table. And, you know, if the concern was lack of access to cross over the rail bed, we could, you know, we could certainly work that in to our formula of trying to be inclusive to all neighbors. So, you know, so what I was trying to understand is where the rail bed is relative to your properties, or the properties that you use. I understand they're properties that are owned by others, and how a developed rail bed would interfere with that. And it sounds like, and maybe I'm not hearing this right, but it sounds like you just at certain points need to cross over it, So your hounds don't run on it? You know, you're just using it as access to get to fields?
No, not
No?
exactly.
Okay.
This is not easy to understand when you're not on a horse, and I would gladly put you on
I'm
a
scared of
horse.
horses, so I'm not getting on a horse. I will walk next to you, but.
One of the things that one has to realize too is that when you're on a horse, and this has happened to George, unfortunately, was taken away in an ambulance in Nolan Woods because the dogs ran up and tried to bite his horse, and his horse jumped out. I've had the same situation with...
Not your hounds,
No,
just,
not the
not the hounds, just pet dogs, right?
I've had the same situation with cyclists. And what happens is not only do we have the issue with the hounds, we have an issue with safety of equestrians. And when you're riding and you're imagine being out with your 2 or 3 horses, and then there are lots of bicycles sort of on a lane next to you, or high up 2 stories above, and you're riding your horse. It's very dangerous for an equestrian. And there are all kinds of things that can happen now. So our issues are multifaceted, and I hope that I'm trying to be as clear as possible. And we're happy to take you out there and show you that.
Right, well, you know, the Hunt Club, or the Hunt in Dover, in Medfield, have coexisted for many, many years. And I just find it hard to believe that we couldn't find, if this rail trail were to be developed, that we couldn't find a compromise that would be mutually acceptable to all of us. You know, I understand, and perhaps my information is incorrect right now, but Medfield is moving forward with the rail trail, and 50% of your property is in Medfield. So I imagine you're making similar presentations in Medfield as you are in Dover. And, you know, we all cherish the open space, and I walk in Noanat all the time. And, you know, I see people on horseback there. So I find it hard, and maybe just because I'm naive and I don't understand, but I just don't see how we can't or wouldn't be able to reach a compromise that we could all benefit from. You know, right now, the rail trail is in the hands of Dover, but if our town votes no, we walk away. And that rail trail can be developed by anyone. And we know in Sudbury, DCR went in there and they're paving it. You know, and I think paving that would be worse for the Hunt Club. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe the horses can just jump over it. So, you know, and then as far as contamination goes, you know, I think today you have the same risk as you would have if it were developed. And maybe I'm just oversimplifying this, but I don't see how there's no risk today of contamination, and there would be a risk of contamination if we were to develop the rail bed. And you know, the contamination is in the ground. If it's there, it's in the ground now. You know, maybe I would take you up on your offer and see, you know, I'm a visual person. I had a horrible experience once. I will not get on a horse. They're beautiful creatures.
Could I just jump in for a moment?
Sure.
I think if I understand, and I could be wrong, but my understanding is that in part, we're talking about lots of traffic of a variety of types coming down into your neck of the woods. I think it's bicyclists, it's strollers, it's runners, walkers, dogs, it's anything that is coming down that isn't otherwise there. My guess is that you are working the hounds early in the morning.
Most mornings.
Most mornings.
It's sort of seasonal, I think.
Because it's one of the reasons why I have been in Wildwoods many, many times, but I've never had the privilege of running into any of you. Would love to do that. You know, it would be a privilege for me. But that's not a very traveled part of our town.
That's right.
Wildwoods is fairly empty. The tracks, the trails along the tracks are very empty. In fact, easy to get kind of turned around and lost.
I landed up on Miller Hill one day
exactly.
without a leash.
Yeah,
It was
right.
horrible. You
So I think, in fact, my understanding about what has happened around Noannet is that indeed now there's so much traffic of all of the types we're describing that it's now making equestrian riding difficult and dangerous, George, for you, for
In
everyone.
fact, the
Yeah.
horse traffic, when I moved here in '85, there were lots of horses there.
Right.
But the hunt actually, for the last couple of years, we talked with the trustees who were wonderful, but, and we've tried to work out something where we might be able to just hunt there a couple of times.
Right.
But people don't pay attention to signs.
Right.
And so we can't take hounds now
Right.
into that area that we always hunted historically
Right.
with. Well, I never knew Miss Peabody. She died
Right.
a few years before me, but that was her area. This was a big place for the hunt. But we've essentially lost that because it's a multi-town attraction now.
Right.
Really about the last place in Dover where you can still just walk without a dog jumping up on you, loves everybody, but you, I'm sure had that happen with dogs. My wife's a little older and she won't walk in Noannet anymore because, you've got these dogs that are perfectly nice, are not gonna bite or anything, but they jump up. And so it's, although there are some dogs and some bites in this last part of town, this is relatively quiet. For the hound training itself, it's just going to be an impossible situation if you've got lots of dogs, lots of bicycles. It's just not going to be safe. I appreciate your saying that, if this does pass, try to work together. And, we've had that same really good conversation. I really, I wish we were all the same mind on this, but we're one way or the other. However this vote turns out, we need to have good feeling in town. We really do. And, whoever loses, accept it, and whoever wins, accept it, and be gracious and share. And, it's just, we would be remiss if we didn't tell you our concerns and also let you know, what the Hunt Club does. And it's not, I've heard some stuff, oh, gee, it's a bunch of out-of-towners. And, this club has always been a bunch of out-of-towners. If you look at the name of those old Yankees up there who would come out from Boston and hunt, all of this land that we've got, and I'll tell you, a lot of the fundraising that we have now for open space is coming from those out-of-towners specifically so they can preserve land in Dover for the Norfolk hunt. So there is a sort of an indirect thing we need to think about. Let's just see how this goes. We wanted you to know, and get a little more about the hunt's history. I know you've got a million things on your agenda. I appreciate very much, as does DA and as does the Norfolk Hunt Club. You're listening to us.
Thank you.
I think John has some questions.
I do.
Oh,
I do.
sorry, John.
I do. So, and I do appreciate, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the time, the effort, the energy that has gone into it. And I do understand the concerns with regards to, the hounds and the things that you've put time and energy and effort into it. So, but I do echo Robin's sentiments in that I think that I don't view it, George, as a win-lose. I don't think that it's certainly not the board, and the board is not going to act with the intent or with the motivation for this to be a win-lose situation for anybody. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to look at every part of it and make it acceptable to the best of our ability for everyone. So in that sort of as a segue, let's just start from my standpoint with give us a little bit of background, give me a little bit of background. Something had to happen, and I did say that to you with tongue-in-cheek at the open meeting, what happened when the trains came in. Because you set it up eloquently and said the hounds were here before people and the hounds were here before the train, the rail bed. What did you do?
They
You
had a
had to do
schedule.
something.
We hunted back there. The answer is we hunted back there. We knew when the trains were running. It's interesting, someone asked me this as well. We were talking, I read something, I can't remember what it was, where regularly scheduled things that pass through the woods, regularly scheduled, being the key, that animals are accustomed to, they can continue to thrive. It's when things are more chaotic, when something unexpected happens, or a large group of things unexpected happens, then the wildlife doesn't survive. That's not unlike the way it worked for the hunt. So that, for example, we would hunt, we knew the trains were running, they were running, it wasn't like it was a commuter rail where there was a train whizzing by all the time. And if a hound went up on the tracks, then, you had to get that hound. And there are stories in the hunt history of times when, oh my God, the train is coming and there's a hound on the track. And the whipper's in it, and then, at the hunt breakfast later, everybody sort of revels in the story. But they coexisted. And it wasn't an issue. And we knew the regular schedule, so people were aware, and that's basically how it was happening.
So I want to focus on the word that you just used, coexisted,
Yes.
because that's the theme of what George and I have
Yes.
talked about, we've talked about, what Robin is just mentioning, coexisting. So I want to think about, and I'm trying to get you to frame, how is it possible? And I am one of those mountain bikers. I have a mountain bike and a fat bike, and we walk our dogs, so
You're
we...
the devil.
I'm the devil. I will gladly, I've already shared the stories with George about, I'm that guy. So,
Look at how fit you are.
right, exactly. And as I shared with my board members, I got bitten by a dog last Sunday, but that happens, and you coexist. So those things happen, and you coexist with the dogs. So we have people who ride their bikes every day in Nonet and Carroll. And so I went to Chief McGowan and I said, how many incidents have there been involving cyclists and horses? How many have been reported?
I'm sure none.
I don't know. I do
Sure,
know
that would be reported.
that lots of people with horses don't go in there. In fact, I occasionally will have a guest and I'll bring them into Noantic. What I do now is I'll walk on foot, maybe 15 or 20 yards ahead, so that I can flag down cyclists. Because it's gotten worse with the fat tires, because you can really go fat. They're fun, but what I see is guys are looking down. They're not looking like 75 yards ahead, and they just don't see it, because there are places in Noantic where you've got corners and you come around. It's not just that flat trail that goes by the pond. But I'd say the main reason is that people don't go in there unless they're a little bit
I think I can even
extra
comment on that.
brave.
Do you mean equestrians?
Yes, there are.
I
You will see it.
converse
You will see it
with
occasionally.
equestrians.
Believe me, John, if you had been there in the late
20 years
80s,
ago.
you wouldn't believe how many horses were in there.
Well, I
John,
think,
there's also something that everyone in the hunt is taught, and everyone who rides outside, there's a code of conduct that's expected when you're on a horse.
I agree, and
Where if someone, for example, I've been out many times in areas in the Dover Valley where bicycles are not allowed. And I'll be with a couple of other friends, and we're riding through, and a bicycle comes through. And sometimes they have earbuds on so they don't hear you, and the horse always hears ahead of time. The ears go up, and the horse might stop. And I'll say it's okay, and we'll yell out until the person hears us, and they'll say hello, and we might have a chat. They might get off the bike, they might pet the horse, they might have a kid with them. But our ethos is really to say, let's be calm about this. These are horses we're sharing this area. No one would ever, I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, DA, shouldn't we report this, that these are bison? No, we're not going to do that. That's not in the spirit of what we're all about. I mean, Last year I was going to a hunt and we were coming, we had the horse trailer, we were pulling the horse trailer and a group of cyclists came next to us. And they just, the horses are in the back of the trailer, they could see it, and they pounded on the trailer as they were going by,
Oh my
giving the trailer
gosh.
high fives. Did we report that to the police? Absolutely not.
Oh, my gosh.
But that's the sort of stuff that we just take it for granted. And there is, when you're riding on a horse doesn't have brakes the way a bike has brakes. We know that we have to be careful, and we are always as welcoming and as friendly, and people can come by the hunt stables anytime and meet the horses, and that's part of being a good horse person. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, I think it's also part of being a good citizen,
It is.
because I am in the woods all the time. I have a dog that needs a lot of exercise. I go in there when the sun rises, and I can tell you, both in Rocky Woods and Noanette Woods, I've never seen a soul. You know, I go in there on my own. Noanette Woods on the weekends has gotten a little bit busier. But also, I go there all different times, and I see maybe 2 or 3 cyclists. There are groups, especially in the fall. I started talking to people. There are different groups that do guided hikes through there. So that's most of the people that I see. But for the most part, I find everybody that utilizes the outdoors to be very respectful and appreciative of being able to utilize it and having the space available to us. And that's why I have hope that whatever happens, we can work together and make it work. You know, Rocky Woods has a no dog policy in the afternoon, and people abide by that. And Rocky Woods has a strict dog policy, and they check. You know, and I think a sign does nothing, but if you have people that are going to enforce what's on the sign, you can make it work. And Chief McGowan has committed over and over again. He said his guys are fighting to be able to patrol the rail trail. You know, they think it would be the best detail. So, you know, I think with a little bit of enforcement, gentle enforcement, we should find a way where we can all share respectfully the space together. And I think by you coming here, that's your gesture of saying we want to work with you, and it's our gesture too. You know, whatever happens at town meeting, if it's a no, we all walk away and, you know, see what happens. If it's a yes, I know the Friends are committed to working with you, and we, as the Board of Selectmen, whoever sits here would be committed to working with you as well, with everybody in the town, because it has to work for everybody in Dover.
Well, the condition is, for any meeting, you have to have pork as nice as Dr. Moss served us last night.
So,
All I can promise is not a pink wall. That's about it.
but George, just again, to focus on the things that you brought up, the points that you brought up, and the words that you used in the slides and the presentation of risk and concern and the inability to interact. So I just want to make sure that I understand where you're coming from, because it seems to me, only from our experience, and I can understand that the number of equestrians have diminished near your house, at your house, behind your house, into Nonette, into Carroll. So that I'm sure that is the case. How is it? Can you in any way put some color to the way that this is incompatible? Because it seems there's compatibility by everybody.
What makes it very tough, and there are a bunch of situations. I say the easiest to understand is that we've got the rails, we've got the trail next to it, which is basically the artery that gets us into the network on the corridor side. And also, it is the way that we get over to the Medfield steeplechase course, which is, and there's just in many places, the proximity, it's really easy
Can I
to
just
see.
ask
Yes.
a quick question? Are the parcels not contiguous?
No, they are not. You have to, you go across Hunt Drive, you go about another, maybe 1,200, 1,500 feet, I think it's feet, to get to the Medfield border. And then at that point, it's a very, very quick thing, along the same trail. You wouldn't know you're in one town or the other. It's just along that same trail, that opens up into the steeplechase course.
Which is the big meadow if you're driving
Yes.
down Center
Exactly.
Street, North Street, okay.
And that's where we have the polo and the country in September and all the events and things. So there, if you can imagine taking 22 hounds along that, and they don't just go single file.
It's 41.
What?
It said 41.
Well, no, but you usually do that, they take them out. Yeah, what they do is, it's sort of like a ball club, you know, you have some on the bench and you have some.
Starters.
Out in the field.
Take the starters.
But, you know, just getting them moving along, you can imagine, some of them are gonna go on the rails, and it just, if you have at that same time, people on bicycles, or God forbid, people with dogs, whether they're on a leash or not, it's just a chaotic situation. So one of the things, and this is where, you know, with this, it's just a shame. You know, it's hard to look at this and not think that this then leads to a multi-town trail. When that happens, the multi-town trail vision, you look at the study that's been prepared for Medfield. It's very clear. This is going to be a commuter path. It'll be for 3 towns. That's the vision. If you look at the website that's run out of Needham, same thing. This is actually there. It's Newton, 4-town connection. And, you know, I am glad that our local group has divorced itself, you know, from that vision, that affiliation. That's positive. But long term, we're going to face, when you sign a lease, I don't know if the T is going to let you break it into segments or not. Do we know yet? I know we've asked for that. But if they lease it to us, the terms of that lease, unless you can get an exception, are that within 5 years you've got to have a rail trail. So at least what I'm looking at right now is the lease that's before us. It's a border-to-border lease with a 5-year condition to develop a rail trail. Now, whether they would create exceptions for that or something, there you're going to have this political pressure from all these people in these other towns who are voters saying, this is terrible, what do you want? Big gas machines, we want a commuter trail for bicycles. You know, if it weren't going through our country, that would be great, but this is just the last place.
But you do understand, we say no. That option is available to others.
Yes and no, however, I'll tell you.
It's not yes or no,
if the
it's yes.
No, but if the majority of this town.
We would have no say in it.
I think that if we have motivated legal leadership and strong direction from the selectmen, the majority voted it down. Can we tax it? Can we regulate it? What can we do? I think it would dissuade very much any outside group coming in the teeth of meaningful opposition.
Well, that certainly wasn't the case in Weston and.
Well, actually, Weston has been misrepresented very much. Weston was a situation where the town voted it down.
Well, we don't have a lot of time today, so if you want to send that to me, I'd be happy to read it.
Basically, John, was there anything else? Because we don't want to hold you up all night.
Just one last question. You mentioned that the equestrian community came in and purchased land specifically that was contiguous to other land that was owned or has been used by equestrians on Pagan Hill. What happened there?
Oh, we hunt on Pagan Hill. I don't know whether you know that. And there has been over the past, how long has it been, a couple of years?
Yeah.
They have done a very, very significant fundraising effort to preserve more land. This is through the trustees of reservations, to preserve more land on Pagan Hill. And members of the Hunt Club have been very generous in donating to that cause.
And
So
The
we'll continue to.
Porter.
trust and now is the same.
How much land was purchased?
I don't have the exact information.
Well, some of the land was
Right.
in
Yeah.
Natick, and Natick used the
CPA.
CPA funds to purchase it. They
There were a
they
couple-
got
there were a
about
couple
$2
of parcels
million.
out there
So.
that were connected, so.
You can go up there, they have these
I want to say
Adirondack
90
chairs.
acres. It's sizable.
Yeah.
It's sizable, and it belongs now, it's being managed by TTOR. But it was a 2 or 3 town and many private and anonymous donors both contributed to this to acquire the land up on the top of Pegan Hill. Safeguarded, yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Dover Land Trust was-
Okay,
Thank you.
any volunteers for horses, we'll find one.
Thank
I got a
you.
quiet pony for
How big is it?
small one.
I'll do one of my little bodies.
The donkey might work.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Slide over and use this mic, not a problem.
Are there any questions on the presentations?
Should I set up my little thing to amplify sound? Right,
So next on the agenda is, as you all know, we made the representation that we would file the lease in the form that we had with the town clerk's office. And so town council is here, and we're going to talk about the lease that's going to be filed with the town clerk.
and so I can be heard, I'm gonna have to
Okay.
take a second.
We have some new technology here.
We hope it works.
Madam Chair, would you like to do a couple of other things while we're getting set up?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ramsey, that's a good idea.
I noticed that Mark Baloney from Park and Rec is up. I'll give you a quick one for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mark, why don't you come in?
If you,
Leave it alone.
Hi, Mark.
There we go. 0.
Yep. So what we're doing, we're setting up, so we're gonna move around so we can let you go home and have some dinner, all right? Well, you can thank Greer, she spotted you out there
I've been watching him.
pacing, all right.
Madam Chair, does everybody know Mark?
So,
Right. Yes, right.
so you were here this evening?
Yeah, so I think the first item would be the beginning balances for our fiscal 17 for the revolving fund. So I think the first sheet there will include all of our categories for our revolving fund.
Okay,
The top part are program related, and then the bottom half are operation type accounts.
okay,
The commission back in August voted to accept these balances to start. A couple of notes on the right. We combined a couple line items. So if you look down on the notes column, we had a few categories: renovate baseball fields, and another category: renovate, replace enhanced playing fields. So we just combined those into one. To have a category at least for renovate baseball fields and installing new dugouts. And then underneath there, we had a line item for refinishing the gym floor. However, the commission decided to look into replacing the gym
Okay.
floor rather than keep refinishing it. It's
and that's the one in the Carroll
in Carroll
Community
Center, correct. So we just made a new line item for
Okay.
replacing.
And so have you done all this work? Have all these funds been expended,
Not
or
yet.
they're encumbered to be
No,
expended?
so we
So they're,
did, right, exactly. So we, the commission voted in August, and then some of them might take place later.
okay,
After July 1 or maybe happening before.
okay. So looking at this list, it appears that your programs are still quite popular.
Yeah, so programs popular, we're including new programs, so we have our staple programs, and then
Right.
we have new programs that we continue to add. We had ice skating, and this past winter, ice skating, snow tubing was popular.
Okay.
And then
So where was the ice skating?
at the Block Ice Center in Denver.
Okay, all right.
So we partnered with the Boston Skating Academy.
And where was the tubing? The tubes?
In Neshoba Valley.
Oh, cool.
It's really
Yeah,
fun
so that was a
tubing
big,
there.
big hit for the middle school kids. And then we have musical theater starting up. Last week we partnered another program with COA, so we started pickleball. So a drop-in program with COA and Cal Community Center.
And I've noticed there've been programs targeted more to the more mature citizens of Dover than some of the younger kids.
Yes, we
And
tried, yes, so we
Oh.
tried to include everybody.
It's
From
nice.
pre-K to.
It's nice, Mark.
all the way up. So,
Right.
Right.
So what are you looking for us to do this
So
evening?
tonight, I think it's just a vote to accept the beginning balances. It's a requirement each year, so our commission is looking for a vote to accept those beginning balances, and they've been approved with the town accountant. So we work together with her. So yeah, that's what we're looking for the beginning balances.
And so then the total down below, that's the total of all the beginning balances? So the $423,731, okay?
Yes.
And then all of these funds have come in from proceeds from programs that Park and Rec puts on.
Correct.
And then the balance in the revolving fund has to be maintained at $10,000 per year. So then these are expenditures that are going to come out of the proceeds that were raised from programs from Park and Rec. Do you have any questions? Okay. Can I just commend whoever decided to put together this really simple schedule? Thank you.
Yes, it's evolving each year, but I think
Right.
that's one of the
It's very
easiest,
nice.
You know, the first time I saw this, it was on paper
Yes.
this big
We
with
moved on
print,
from-
6 fonts.
Yeah.
Back then, my eyes were a lot better than they are today, but, you know, I appreciate this.
You're very welcome.
So then I'll make a motion to accept the beginning balances for the Park and Rec Reserve Fund totaling $423,731.82.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, and then there's one more, so we'll do the forecast. So there's one more on the next page, you'll see a forecast for 18. So this
Okay.
year's just a forecast with all the programs, and it is very similar to last year's. There's not a ton of change. Again, above is programming, and below are more operational. You see some of those same items in the bottom. So we anticipate some of those will not be completed until after July 1, so that's why the expense would occur at 18. But very similar to, we saw in the beginning balances, all the same accounts. It's just a forecast for 18.
So then the beginning balances for 17 aren't the beginning balances for, I was kind of expecting the total on this page to equal the total on that page. I mean, they're close.
Wouldn't be the same.
Okay, why is that?
Because of
Humor
that,
me.
the beginning of 18 is estimated.
Okay.
So we don't actually, what happened is when we did the forecast for 18, we didn't have.
So you don't start with
an
that, just,
estimate.
okay, all
Right,
right.
so we took quarter 1 and 2, we know, but we don't know 3 and 4.
So that's
it's
the
an estimate.
auditor in me.
Right, yeah, no, it's a good question, but yeah, that's an estimate. What do we think will be the end of
Okay.
17?
Okay, all right.
And right off the bat, the batteries are in last year, but not this coming
Okay,
year,
all
right?
right, okay, all right. So what do you want us to
So there
do?
should be another vote
Okay.
to accept the forecast that has been a requirement in the past.
Okay, so are there any questions on the line items? Are there any new programs you're going to try out?
There are a few, so other programs, we have our staple programs that are listed, and then others, there's a line item for other programs, so we try newer programs, so
Okay,
we recently did a program at Poison Farm. We are trying out, and going to continue with those. So
Okay.
that's one. As I mentioned last week, we started pickleball with the seniors, that's another new program. So yeah, there's a couple in the fall we're hoping to start. But yeah, those are a couple.
okay.
Nice.
Are good.
All right, so then I make a motion to accept the Park and Rec revolving fund forecast for fiscal year 18.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, thank
All
you.
right.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Testing,
All right.
testing.
Does
testing,
anybody know what
test,
pickleball is?
test.
Yeah.
You do?
Oh, yeah, it's the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing sports. It's different rules than tennis, but it's played on a tennis court with special lines. And it's, a lot of seniors are really into it. It's very fast. A lot of clubs have had pickleball.
How many people on a court at once?
It's normally doubles.
Okay, all right. Maybe we should go watch. New spectator sport.
Definitely not want to be the new guy asking that question. Thank you.
Let's just turn the rail trail to
That's good.
Good evening.
Oh, that's right.
Wow,
Does that work?
yes.
Okay. So, I wanted to make sure that we're prepared for town meeting because I'm leaving this weekend for a 2-week vacation with my wife. So I wanted to make sure that everything was in place, ready to go for this article. I asked for some time this evening with Dave for myself and also for the friends for any issues that they may want to speak to you about. I want to be brief, but go through a couple of sets of documents if I can. You don't need to read them now. You're very familiar with them, but I want to tell you what my recommendation is and get your permission to do it, okay? Which one this is?
Thank you.
This is a cover letter from me to the town clerk filing the lease that is proposed to be the town's lease with the MBTA. Behind tab A, or 1 rather, is the standard form of the MBTA lease with no changes to it. And then behind tab 2 is the latest version of what the town proposes, which is the version this board approved back in February, with one change at my suggestion, approved by Dave, to just give another option to the town to terminate if things go wrong. In other words, if the MBTA loses a quiet title suit for all or part of the trail, the town would not be able to do what it's supposed to do under the lease, so the town would have a right to terminate. We think that's a very, very unlikely situation, but it's just dotting an I, protecting the town in another way in the draft. The MBTA is aware of the request for that particular provision. So what you have in front of you is a package that's both the standard form and the proposed form that we want.
The MBTA is reviewing currently.
Right. The question is, why do we file both? And I will describe that to you. So for an extended period of time now, the MBTA has had the proposed version of the town lease, but we have not gotten back their approval as to that form. And I keep pushing as aggressively but as diplomatically as I can to try to get a response on that. And I'm told essentially that we'll have something by town meeting, but they don't have anything for us yet, okay? We don't know whether they will get something for us by town meeting, and if they do, we don't know whether it will be an approval with some minor tweaks, or an approval if you do the following, 35 changes, which would be substantially different from what we've been asking for, okay? So I'm recommending to file both of these with the town clerk and to have two different forms of motion ready to go, depending on what we learn from the T between now and town meeting. You've already seen the main motion. You saw it a couple of weeks ago. I believe you approved it. It's the one that limits the lease to premises to the Hunt Drive to the center of town and includes options at either end, but the options can only be exercised by going back to town meeting, okay? That was a draft that was reviewed with the Friends ahead of time. My understanding is that that draft is also one that they think is an appropriate way to go. So I have another copy of it tonight just to show what that is.
Thank you.
So again, this is the main motion, and it's one that you have seen before. And then there is a contingency plan, and this is just something that I'm recommending because we don't know what, if anything, the T is going to come back with. And I'm trying to set up a situation where if the town wants to go forward with a rail trail and wants to authorize this board to essentially finalize a lease, regardless of what comes back from the T, the board will have the ability to say yes or no on its own terms and negotiate and get a lease that is in the best interest of the town. There is a backup motion.
Well, there's also Plan C, because Steve has made sure that we be
Thank
left
you.
in good hands, and his partner is available in case Plan C, D, E, and F arise while he's on vacation.
I am nothing if not thorough. Okay, so this motion is essentially the same as the main motion with the following change. Two versions of the lease are going to be filed with the town clerk, the standard form and the one we want. What this says is that town meeting would authorize the board to finalize a lease essentially somewhere between the two. The worst case would be the MBTA standard form, the thing that Needham signed and many other towns have signed. The ideal case would be to get what we have bargained for and negotiated for. We could do better than that if the board finds through due diligence that additional conditions are necessary. The motion, both motions allows you to improve upon what we've asked for. This motion, however, allows you to find an endpoint somewhere in between the standard form and what we've been asking for. So it bookends the worst case and the best case, okay? You would only use this motion if you haven't heard anything from the T, so it's anybody's guess what's going to come back, or they've come back with something that is materially different than what we've asked for, and there's no time to negotiate a better deal. That can happen after town meeting under this motion, essentially to push back on the T, and you have the flexibility to say yes or no, depending on what ultimately you're able to negotiate. There are two people I have lined up at my office for the time that I'm away.
They have my number.
You have theirs, so that's even more important. You know where to reach them. So Allie is a real estate lawyer in the office, and Allie is familiar with this project. She has worked with me on questions that we've already done preliminary research on for the T's title and abandonment and so on. And she's worked with me on various issues along the way, questions on the lease. So Allie Metropolis is her name, call her Allie. And as I say, she's a real estate lawyer. If the T comes back with some modest changes, we like what you did, but we can't approve this and this, the instructions are Allie takes the message to Dave. Dave works directly with Allie and as necessary with the board to address those issues. If those issues can be resolved ahead of town meeting, then you know exactly what lease you're going to be voting on at town meeting. That further draft can be immediately filed with the town clerk's office. If there's something more extensive than that, it's going to be in my hands when I get back to step back into the saddle, for want of a better metaphor, and try to, get to yes on the lease. Okay? The other person who is lined up, the name of the firm is Anderson and Krieger. Well, if you can't have Anderson, you're going to have Krieger. Okay? Art Krieger will be coming to town meeting, and I have met with him. I have provided written information to him, and I have briefed him on the issues as best I can to essentially allow there to be a smooth transition, to have the top person present at town meeting able to answer questions as they come up. So that's my recommendation, and what I'd like to do this evening is get your permission to file the letter and its 2 attachments with the town clerk tomorrow. I would leave the original and a copy with Dave, ask that it be filed in the morning, stamped in by the town clerk. The copy would be stamped and get sent back to me in the self-addressed stamped envelope, so I have that, and the electronic copy can be posted on the town's website so everybody can see exactly what is on file with the town clerk.
And we also know that on file already with the town clerk is red line versions of Exhibit 2.
2. And
One, and showing how we got from the form lease to what we asked for.
correct.
And there's also that very good summary, summarizing each of the things we asked for and some of the give and take between us and the MBTA.
Correct. I mean, the standard form was part of the feasibility study, so you already have that on the website. And the negotiated lease number 2 is already posted with the one change that I mentioned tonight. And I took out the yellow coloring on the 3 open issues just so it's transparent as a document that's easy to see on the system. Okay? So, with your permission, I would like to file the letter and its attachments with the town clerk tomorrow, and I'm recommending the main motion, assuming there's that we get a yes from the T or no major changes from the T, and a contingency plan just in case. It's not ideal, but allows you to make good use of town meeting, get the sense of the town as to how they want to move forward, and then we try to close the deal, and if it's authorized with a yes, close the deal favorable to the town. Okay? And I will say that it's not for lack of effort from Dave, myself, the town staff that's been working on this issue to try to get a timely response from the MBTA, but it is what it is. We are where we are.
Well, they have 2 weeks.
Correct.
They still have 2 weeks.
I gave a copy of the contingency plan motion to the friends ahead of time, just in case they had any questions or comments on it tonight while we're all here. But there were 2 other issues that I think we want to talk about with the friends, and they may have other issues as well. So you're aware that we've drafted an MOU to try to spell out the understanding that the friends would be donating the money necessary for the project. They've had a draft of that for a while. I understand they will have comments on the draft. I haven't received them yet, but they have some questions or comments on the draft. And so there's, at the moment, not a final signed MOU. As with the lease, depending on what the suggestions are, people in my office can get the yes if it's, within the range of what, we've been talking about. If there are major changes that only I'm familiar with the issues enough. You know, it's going to have to wait till after town meeting, but we're all moving forward to try to get to the understanding as to what the funding commitment is on that. I'm just the scrivener. I'm not trying to change the terms. I'm not trying to negotiate it. I'm just trying to memorialize it in writing in a way that's transparent to everybody and the friends and in the town. Okay, so that's one issue. A second issue is there's been a lot of questions raised at the meetings that I've attended concerning the MBTA's title and abandonment issues, and there are legal issues that are of some significance depending on which way the questions come out. So I had recommended to Dave that we ask the friends a while ago for some funds, essentially to jumpstart the due diligence on the title and the abandonment issue. We've already done some of that work on the town's nickel, but we didn't want to get too far down the road, you know, in due diligence without understanding who's paying for what and what we're supposed to be doing. I think it's fair to say that there's not enough time remaining between now and town meeting to get that full jumped up start on that issue of the title search and so on. Mike Marsh, the title examiner that I mentioned before, is lined up. He's ready to do it, but he needed several weeks to do his piece of the puzzle, and then I or Allie would have to look through it and understand it and make sure it is what we think it is, and then compare it to the cases that we know on the T's title and see where that comes out. We've also done some work going to the STB, the Surface Transportation Board in Washington, and trying to find out whether there has ever been abandonment by a railroad that is meaningful, meaning abandonment that would somehow wipe out the rights that the T would otherwise have. I think it's fair to say that there are pieces of paper on file with the STB that say that a certain railroad at a certain time abandoned something, but in conjunction with that, there was a deed from, Penn Central to the T. There was a taking by the T. Conrail abandoned Bay Colony immediately stepped into the shoes under a lease with MassDOT and so on. So we're getting the pieces of the puzzle lined up, but there's still enough work to do that you're not going to have a final answer before town meeting. Okay?
So I appreciate the summary. I guess maybe there was a disconnect with me. I was not expecting to have some of the stuff done until after town meeting, because I think, and I'm speaking for the Friends, but I think they wanted to see what the outcome of town meeting was prior to spending money on further design. I also, they did reach out and mention that earlier in the year we had that meeting with Beals and Thomas and the Friends that unfortunately I was unable to attend at the last minute, and that perhaps after town meeting we could have another one of those meetings just to go through some of the costs so that they can better understand those costs, which I think is reasonable.
Yes, because we got from Beals an engineering estimate updated to the current, and it's different from what was in the feasibility report. So that's certainly a reasonable thing to ask.
So, Madam Chair, see, how much money is needed by your firm prior to putting this together for the Friends?
So when we made the request a few weeks ago on the title and abandonment issue, I recommended an infusion of $20,000 that would take us from where we were to get whatever we could get by town meeting and get it analyzed and so on. My hope was that we would either find a definitive answer, yes, there's not an issue, or if there was an issue, we could raise a red flag and say, it's fine that you're taking a vote, but you really have to understand that there's X problem and, eyes wide open kind of thing.
Does the 20,000 include the title search that the Friends are paying for?
Yes, it would include the cost of the title search by Mike Mars, and then it would include, on top of that, the legal analysis of what comes back from him, plus it would include additional calls down to STP to try to get, every time you call, you get something new, and we're narrowing down the remaining open issues, and we just want to make sure that we've narrowed that down. There's also some conversations that need to take place with MassDOT to try to get information that they would have, because they were the lessor to Bay Colony under the Bay Colony lease during the time it was operating. So it was owned, quote unquote, by the T, with rights that were reserved into MassDOT that came from Penn Central through Conrail to MassDOT, and then those were leased out to Bay Colony. So it's a complicated picture, but it certainly indicates that there is a continuous stream of railroad operations, the intent of which were to preserve railroad operations along that corridor.
The web is only more, the web is similar to the web of finances that are going to be required to pay for this. So I'm following your web of leases, and I'm thinking that there's going to be maybe an equal amount of title searches. Is that true? Or is that possible?
Well, the primary title search is the MBTA's title. So we know it originated with a document from Penn Central's trustees in bankruptcy, which conveyed all Penn Central's right title and interest to the T. And then a couple of years later, there was an order of taking by the T. And ordinarily, that would be the end of the question. However, the deed from the trustees was essentially an easement deed rather than a fee conveyance, because that's all Penn Central would have owned, assuming they did what every other Red Railroad did at the time. They connaved it, and then they reserved back under themselves an easement for freight across the right-of-way. Now, this was not just this set of tracks. This was a whole elaborate set of railroad tracks throughout the Commonwealth, most of which are still in active use by the T, okay? There was, I don't remember exactly how much, but $19 or $16 million of money that was put into it by the government. There was all sorts of different financing instruments that were recorded in the registry. It was a very complicated transaction. It started, then the T, their order of taking. Ordinarily, that would end the discussion, but there were certain issues with that in terms of whether it was recorded and properly noticed and so on. There was recently an appeals court case that I mentioned that resolved exactly that issue in the T's favor in another town, in another rail trail context, where the order of taking wasn't perfect, but it and the statute of limitations wiped out the ability of the objectors in that situation to challenge it. So it's not perfect, but there's an awful lot of information that the search of the T's title would help nail down whether there are any other issues like that.
So this is all part of the due diligence that
Exactly.
is happening, which is why we're not, and we keep saying the town will authorize us, maybe or maybe not, to sign a lease. And once you're authorized, we're not going to just execute the lease. There's a lot that needs to be done, and there are many things that could come up that may cause us and the Friends to decide to walk away.
Are the
So
Friends,
they are fully aware of all of this. They are aware of the funding requirements. And again, one of the things that we represented to the town that's being worked on is this MOU. And if the MOU isn't signed, we're not going to move forward. But I think since the Friends are fronting the money, it makes sense for them to be able to sit down at a table with Beals and Thomas to better understand some of the costs that have been brought forward, because they are different from what's in the feasibility study.
are you comfortable with what you've seen and heard so far?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the good news is that we have the same constituents, right? I envision this meeting to be more along the lines of, we're going to have a major fundraising campaign, assuming that the authorization for the lease goes through. And that fundraising campaign is going to say, these are the dollars we need, and we're going to have to be responsive to people in town as to, well, why do you need this expense? Well, why do you need this expense? Well, why do you need this expense? And so we need to be able to understand and explain to the people in town what the various expenditures are, what's going to happen if there's a cost overrun, what's going to happen if the estimate turns out to be too high. We just need to work those execution issues out so that when we go out to fundraise, we can speak with confidence as to what the money's going to be spent on, and people who are donating can feel confident that their money's going to be used appropriately, which, we're a small town, it's not going to be rocket science, but we can't walk into somebody's house and not have a way to explain what's going on.
And right now, we have a roll forward of the costs, so, it's important to really understand. But everything that's on that list, thanks to Steve's diligence, are things that we have talked to and communicated to Friends of the Dover Greenway about. And so it's been a really transparent process, and I don't think anything on the list was a surprise that it was going to be your responsibility, because we had talked about all this stuff before. It's been a very open process.
Right.
And Steve has been really meticulous, having been through this numerous times, identifying where there are potential pitfalls and what consultants or searches we may need prior to getting resolved prior to executing the lease.
Can I just follow up with one more thought on the abandonment question? So when my associate was making calls to the STP, somebody else from Dover was calling to try to get information on abandonment of the rail trail. We don't know who it is. We don't know why they're calling. We don't know what their agenda is. We can speculate. But I think you need to understand as a board that at the moment, based on what we've done, we have not found a showstopper of abandonment at the STP. The research is not over, but if somebody comes to town meeting and waves something around that they say ends the discussion, we have not seen that yet. We have seen documents that talk about abandonment. For example, when Conrail turned over to, MassDOT turned over to Bay Colony, but clearly the railroad was not abandoned at that time. At least that was news to the freight trains that came down the tracks for the next, whatever it was, dozen years or whatever. So, we're not at the end of the research, but I've briefed Art on this, but if somebody comes up waving things around at town meeting, really the answer to that question is there's a whole period of due diligence that is built in precisely to get to the bottom of issues exactly like that. I was hoping...
Prior to signing the lease.
Right. I was hoping to get the answer before town meeting, so you could just check it off the list and...
We were hoping to get the MBTA's comments before
Exactly.
town meeting too.
Exactly.
I also, I want to be mindful that we, because town meeting is quickly approaching, we want to be very, very clear in how we frame the conversation at town meeting.
Correct.
I will have very, very limited bandwidth for optics that will be displaying things that you're referring to, whether it's waving of flags or waving of petitions or whatever the case may be. So I think we all want to be very, very mindful to keep this as narrow as possible in terms of what the scope of town meeting is going to be. I also want to be very mindful, something that both sides have brought up, and that's the cost. So I don't want to have something come up where we ultimately would be stuck with a significant cost and no possibility of being able to go forward.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, and that's fortunately, we're not the first cowboy at the rodeo. I think that's the saying. And I think I got it wrong. Okay.
Aren't you the one that's afraid of horses?
I am. Well, I'm just afraid of riding horses, having been thrown off of one, but I think they're lovely creatures and very handsome and beautiful. I'm more than happy to pet them. But, you know, fortunately, and Beals and Thomas has designed more than just this one. And so I hope, well, I believe that the experts that we've hired will do a very good job helping us determine what the cost is for the rail trail. There are contingencies in the budget that they delivered, and as Marco pointed out, you know, we need to understand how we're going to deal with overruns if they occur over and above the contingencies that have been built in.
Yeah. I appreciate what you said, Marco. It was in the spirit of that process that I was asking the questions.
Yeah, right.
Another question. Is there a schedule for the Friends to reimburse the town for the legal expenses?
Well, we have not incurred legal expenses to date on behalf of the Friends. The Friends are going to raise money.
I know that.
Right, so we will not begin, Anderson and Krieger have not begun to do the work that is on the Friends bill prior to us getting a commitment from the Friends that they will have the funds in place.
Last year's, if I may, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Last year's town meeting directed the board to enter into the lease. So everything that you've heard, we've heard, that we've presented.
To negotiate.
To negotiate, sorry.
And so we spent funds just doing that, and we've been very cognizant not to cross the line.
So that was the genesis of my question, Pope, because being mindful of both sides and in the spirit of what was just asked by the Friends, or what was presented by the Friends, where we are currently, that line is a moving line. Would that be is that accurate?
Well, we're at the point where we could cross, we're getting close to crossing it.
I mean, clearly I've made many trips to town for meetings of the board, the public, Beals, etc. There's been work on the lease. There's been some preliminary work on looking at documents from the registry or contacting STP to try to understand what's going on. There has been legal work that's been done, but it is under the town council umbrella as opposed to work that would be expected that the Friends would, be paying for as part of the project. At some point, I think there will be a divide, and the expectation or the understanding would be that from here on out, this is the project, and this is what you're raising money for.
And unless I'm mistaken, isn't the abandonment question a part of the execution?
Well, we've done some work up to now on that question. That's on this side of the line. But to do the full due diligence analysis will be on the other side of the line.
Okay.
So that the Friends don't have to start reimbursing the town until there's a yes vote.
Well, there's nothing to reimburse the town.
Well, but
the
if
Friends
it's a yes vote, if we approve it.
If there's a yes vote,
Yeah.
the Friends are going to raise all the money, and then they're going to
Right.
gift it to the town, and then the town will spend funds.
Exactly.
So we won't incur costs without
That's
paying
what I
the
just wanted
funds
to
in the
clarify.
bank.
That the Friends would not be responsible up until that point.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it possible that at town meeting, that the T will not have made a decision, and the model lease is a border-to-border lease, I believe. They don't provide for breaking it into options. That's something we've asked for. Is it possible then that the town meeting would be voting not on an option for part and a lease for part, but the town meeting would be voting for a lease which is border-to-border? Is that possible?
No, because the authorization in either version of the motion no, because the authorization in either version of the motion specifies that all we are leasing is the 2.3 miles of leased premises from Hunt Drive to the center of town. Okay? Any additional leased premises that would be added in the future would require another vote of town meeting. The options, again, are in there in part because of the issue you raised, to make it clear that we've put under our option both ends, okay? But we're not leasing those. They're options. At the town's option, not the T's option, and it requires town meeting vote. So, if at the end of the day, town meeting authorizes what's in this motion, leasing the leased premises, without yet the other ends, and if the T were to say, the only lease we will sign is one where you lease from end to end, everything under the lease, all at once, the motions before town meeting would not authorize this board at this time to do that.
Oh, that's
We
very
have to go back to town meeting.
Thank you very much. That's helpful.
So are there any more questions? Candace, do you have any?
Not tonight, no,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Is it okay if we file the letter then with the town clerk's office?
I was going to take a formal, do
Okay.
we need it? Right, so I would like to make a motion to file both forms of leases. Are we filing the two potential motions as well?
No.
So both forms of leases along with the letter prepared by our attorneys with the town clerk to be filed with the town clerk and also uploaded electronically as soon as possible to the website.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And again, thank you for all
Thanks you
your
so much.
well-deserved vacation.
Thank you. Now I need
hope you're
to
going somewhere special.
dismantle my,
Good.
yes, exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
that's a wonderful trip.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful time.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Yes.
So the next, so we're continuing with our meeting here, so if you'd like to have some private conversations, you can go outside. So the next, right, I know, that's why I offered you the outdoors. Trying not to be rude.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
No, we'll be in touch. Mona will be in touch. We'll try coordinate another day. So thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item of business is, again, it's reflective of the busy year we have had here. And if any of you have driven down Powysset Street recently, you will have noticed that the solar array has been erected for the most part, and they're getting very close to completion. And one of the items that is connected to the solar array is a pilot agreement, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. And since the array is considered personal property, and that property is on land that's owned by the town of Dover, just like any personal property, we can collect taxes from that. Blue Wave came to us and asked if we would be willing to enter into an agreement whereby we would spread the taxes. Personal property taxes tend to be front and loaded, and this way you would take the tax that the town would receive and you would spread it over the estimated life of the array, which is 20 years. We worked with council and the Board of Assessors. It was not something that either I or Mr. Ramsey were experts at, so we relied on consultants, town council, and the Board of Assessors, and there was some back and forth. And we do have an agreement here that will need to be approved by town meeting. So we would vote on it this evening, is that? To approve it and not execute. And then because it is a 20-year agreement, it needs to be voted on at town meeting. The bottom line is that over the next 20 years, we will get estimated tax payments of approximately $28,000 a year. One of the members of the Board of Assessors, when I asked if they thought that this agreement was reasonable, she said it was nothing or something, so this is great. So it is, again, it just shows how putting that land to use, and really good use, and also aiding the town in becoming a green community and working with outsiders on something different, I think will really help from a revenue standpoint with the town.
I think we've also done a very good deed for Hale Reservation. I mean,
It's a win-win for
absolutely.
everyone.
I think
That's an
they will
excellent
benefit,
point.
and it's nice. They're our neighbor, and they afford us a great deal of beautiful land.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely.
And we'll never know how our landfill got to be on their property. But there is a story there that's undocumented. So, right, so then I would like, and that's one of the things that we did as part of the solar array was paper everything that had been happening for the last 50 years.
Which is great.
Right, so it really gave us the ability to do that. So I would like to make a motion for this board to authorize the agreement for payment in lieu of taxes, also known as a pilot program, between the town of Dover and BWC Buckmaster Pond LLC, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Blue Wave Capital LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It's all coming together.
Is the original Buckmaster Pond a property of the Lisbon Foundation? Is it just another?
I think it belongs to the town of Westwood. Because if you come down 109, there's a pond, and that's Buckmaster Pond.
I'm pretty sure she owns it. It's going to be donated. Thank you. I could pay for that.
Okay. So, can you speak to the Concom gift?
Absolutely.
Would you like to do that for us?
When I was still a member of Conservation Commission, there was a bequest from the Arthur Adams, who left a sizable gift to Conservation Commission, and what they are hoping is that they can take $100,000 from that gift fund and apply it to the acquisition of the Porter Trust, so the Porter land. This is this beautiful parcel of land on Bridge Street and bordered by the Charles River to the west and running along Farm Street, and it is a parcel that the Porter family has owned since the 1920s, and we are so fortunate that the family is trying very hard to work similar to what we were just describing about Pegan Hill, a combination of private donors and public funds that would go into saving this land for conservation purposes. And so my understanding is they've been able to put together adequate funds through generous donations, some of them anonymous, some not, and this property will be purchased. The PNS is going to DLCT, the Land Trust, and Conservation Commission is able to donate out of the Arthur Adams Gift Fund $100,000 with our approval.
Okay. Well, certainly a great outcome for the town of Dover.
Absolutely.
If I may, they would also be donating $75,000 from their conservation.
Right, and I was going to speak, I'm sorry, I thought that was separate. No, that's fine.
But it doesn't need the selectmen's approval.
Okay.
Wonderful.
To their discretion, and we did check and made sure that Arthur Adams Trust Fund allowed for this, and it absolutely does for conservation purposes.
Okay.
And the town does have a real estate interest in this property because DLCT is saying that they will allow Concom to be the monitoring agent for conservation restriction.
That's
Town
wonderful.
council also advised that they felt that this should be approved if it were to be contingent upon both DLCT and Concom signing off on the conservation restriction, however, not the state, because that process can take months, as we all know. So that was their recommendation.
And what I was going to share, and you brought it up, and I'm so glad, I'm really glad. We do have a warrant article that requests $25,000 be put into the Conservation Commission fund for just such a purpose as this. And so we've amassed over the last 3 years a total of $75,000. So this is, I believe, what you're saying, the $75,000 will go plus the
donation.
100. Exactly.
Is sort of the Dover contribution
Right.
to this.
Exactly.
It's like the reverse of 287 down.
Right.
Because DLCT contributed monies to allow Concom to purchase that property,
Right.
and they would be monitoring the
Okay.
for conservation restriction.
Now, I would just like to say that there were many Dover residents who worked very, very hard
Right.
to preserve this parcel of land.
Absolutely.
And the Porter family could have, with a different outcome, may have been able to get more funds, but it was more important to them to preserve this land. And I think we owe it to all that worked on it, and we are very fortunate to have such a wonderful outcome for the town. And so I would like to say thank you to the many, many people in Dover that made this happen.
Absolutely. And if I could add another thing, one of the pieces that is so invaluable about this parcel is that it has Charles River access. So, I mean, this is such a gift for our town. And you're absolutely right, the family has tried very hard in keeping with the spirit of the family to be sure that Dover has this property to protect.
And it was a labor of love to get
Right.
this to where we are. We've been talking about this for over 2 years now.
Right.
And so the persistence of the family, I can't thank them enough for what they've done for
Absolutely.
the town of Dover.
Ian Reitmeyer took the lead on that.
Right.
The family
I didn't know she wanted to
members.
stay anonymous, so I was trying to.
No, it's right here.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
And she's also donating
Right.
to the.
right. So a shout out and thank you to Anne
Right.
for all
Absolutely.
her hard work. So then I would like to, so do we accept this gift or?
No, you're authorized to expenditure.
Okay, so,
Contingent upon.
okay, so we're authorizing the 75,000? The
100,000.
100,000? Okay. Oh, all right, I'm
Contingent
so
upon-
confused. All right. Okay, so then I would like to make a motion to authorize the $100,000 gift from the Arthur Adams Gift Fund, that's a mouthful, contingent upon DLTC conveying the conservation.
Both signing off on the
Both signing off on the
conservation
conservation
restriction,
restriction.
Concom and DLCT.
You should have made this
No,
motion.
no, no, no.
Okay. Did I get that right now? All right, all in favor? Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Just one thing, Arthur Adams was the emergency management director
Oh.
in Dover for years.
I did not know that.
And he was involved in the Boy Scouts and just an absolutely wonderful man
Oh,
who
wonderful.
really cared about the town.
Wouldn't he love to know?
He would.
Yes, absolutely.
So then this gift will keep his spirit with us always, right? Okay, so now we have a grant. Once again, that recycling committee is busy getting grants for $11,500, and it is for the open roll-off for that, right? The plastic roll-offs is
The roll-off container.
container for $5,500, and then the shed for the swap shop for $6,000. So once again, you can convey to your committee, we appreciate their ability in finding these grants and getting them. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the grant of $11,500 from the Mass DEP, put together by the recycling committee for the plastic roll-ups in the shed behind the swap shop shed, totaling $11,500.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Very nice.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is to finalize the warrants, the motions for the warrants, and we got these all like two weeks ago. And we requested that motions go out to different committees that were sponsoring them. So did we get any feedback from those committees?
No, so I assume that they're acceptable.
Okay, all right. And I know these are prepared by town council and Greer. I did not find any changes that I felt necessary to make to the motion, so I don't know if,
Wonderful.
yeah, if either of you did.
No, No.
And John, just since you're the newbie on the ball here, we do have a meeting, usually the week before town meeting, where the moderator runs the meeting and we go over the motions and who asks for what and who seconds, and then we still get around the town meeting.
And the cue
But-
cards. Your index cards.
No, we don't have those. Maybe that's the problem with that system.
Signed index cards to answer questions for this year,
Right.
because there's going to be 32 opportunities.
So do you need us to accept the motions? No? All right.
Just for your information.
Okay.
If I may, Ms. Hunter, there was a second grant.
Oh, did I miss?
Recycling program that was attached. It was the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program, is that correct? And that is for,
The same
same
amount.
amount.
That's why. Mona,
yes,
Thank you.
you, I don't know. You have to make sure I get this stuff.
I do.
Right. And so this is another grant, again by the recycling committee, for $11,500 for sustainable material recovery program reimbursement. Do you know what that is?
What does that mean?
I think this is the flip side. There are two forms, one to accept the gift, one to expend it.
Oh.
Yeah, so you did sign it, Robin.
Oh,
Signed it, but-
I see, so we accept it
the law requires, as Mrs. Luzman reminded us some years
Right.
ago, that accept and expend.
I see.
Okay, all right.
I see.
So now that, so
We've accepted. we're
we've
gonna
accepted,
expend
and
on
so now I would like to make a motion to expend the $11,500 on the two items that we mentioned before.
And I
So I just-
second. Right, second.
All in favor?
Aye. Right.
And one day I'll get this right. Well, you know, I'm almost done being chair. Maybe I'll go through one meeting without an error. Just one, that's all I asked for.
So Craig will be using part of that grant to start the spring, as soon as around defrost and pour concrete and stuff, for the shed, the additional shed.
Okay.
And then over the summer, he will acquire the additional roll-off so that we can start recycling and reusing the rigid plastics.
Okay.
Nice.
Where will it be?
Right, I'm assuming next
The
to,
second shed will be sort of behind where the current swap shop, swap shop has the double areas, and then there's a right-hand garage, sort of, if you will, where they keep their equipment. And then you have the shed behind, the shed to the left of it. So this is going to go behind that. The roll-off will go behind where the current construction debris roll-off is.
Thank you.
maybe I should ask for a tour when all the stuff's there. I'm sure Craig would be more than happy to show me around.
He even has a map of it if you want to see it.
There's so much going on at the transfer station, the solar array, this, you know, it's the place to be. Okay, and so now we have the annual meeting warrant, election warrant. And I guess, so there's there's elections that will be voted on. So we have the moderator, the town clerk, one member of the Board of Selectmen, one member of the Board of Assessors, two members of the Dover School Committee, one member of the Dover Regional School Committee, two members of the Library Board, one member of the Cemetery Commission, and one member for the Planning Board for 5 years and one member for 1 year. So that's just filling an expiring term. And then one associate member for the Planning Board, one member for the Board of Health, and one member for Park and Rec. So, and then there's going to be the non-binding question regarding the MBTA lease. And this looks identical to the warrant articles. All right. So town council again has reviewed these? And you, or have you reviewed and drafted and sent to town council?
Yes, yes, and
Okay.
so this is the language that was on the petitions.
Okay, all right.
And more than 400 signatures
Right,
were.
right.
on
I
that,
knew
so
you
that
made
was a
sure
minimum.
that everything was.
Oh, yes.
So then we need to vote to accept this? Okay.
So I have a question. My understanding initially was that indeed this was the way the question was going to be worded on the ballot. Then my next understanding was that it actually duplicated the language in Article 19.
As Greer said, it's whatever was on the petition itself.
I see.
So I don't know.
Okay.
what dates it.
So in other words, question 1 here is not necessarily it.
That's the question that the
This is the yes or no.
petitioners signed off on.
So my understanding is when the petition was handed out to be signed, this
I
was
see.
the question that was on there. And I guess we could read it for the town. It's, should the town of Dover lease land from the MBTA and create a recreational rail trail more or less on the old rail trail right-of-way in Dover known as the Bay Colony Railroad Line? Well, I'd imagine that was on the.
That was their petition.
That was their petition.
And so that's what needs to be on the ballot.
That's correct.
Okay, excellent.
Was it in italics?
No, we always put,
I know, it was just a joke. It was just a joke.
Oh, there's a question also, it catches their attention.
No, no. Also, you know, question 1 is a giveaway there. Question 1, colon.
For those who are reading closely.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great.
All right. So then I make a motion to accept the annual town warrant for Monday, May the 15th as provided to us. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry to hold you guys up. It's almost easier to just pass them all down.
So this will go to the printer in the morning
Okay.
and be mailed next week.
Excellent.
And then I understand the blue book is also going to the printer, and
This
it's,
book is being mailed on Tuesday.
and it's a record number of pages.
Yes, it is.
1,700.
Looks like a small phone book. That's great.
They maintained the font size, and just had more pages.
Always do things the same way, so that you don't have questions, when, is there something different about this?
Right.
Here you go.
I just can't thank you enough
Mona?
for
Okay,
your
thank you.
diligence, consistency, perseverance. I mean, it's just amazing, Greer.
Well,
And
thank you.
Mona,
Yes.
both of you.
And also, you know, some of the articles and the motions were designed by town council, the technical ones, the rail trail, so, you know, working with Ms. Hunter and Mr. Ramsey, and also Ms. Hunter on the solar array questions. So they had,
That's great.
there was plenty of help.
That's great.
Teamwork.
That's right.
All right, so, you know, this is like, this meeting this evening is all the things we did, the green communities, the
Right.
solar array,
Right.
so
Nice to see.
now you
Right.
have the certificate, right, the grant. So I would like to take a moment, there was a ceremony on Wednesday, unfortunately I was in New York, where the check for the first grant for the green communities was presented to the town. And Gino, the town planner, attended, and also there were some members from Long Range Planning, and there was a former member of Long Range Planning, Rick Forte, who took it upon himself, and even when his term ended, he made sure that he uploaded all of the electrical data that we needed, all the utility data that we needed. So a special thanks to both him and Gino and everybody on the Long Range Planning Committee for getting this done and making this happen. It is just one of those projects in Dover that I think we're going to benefit from for many years to come. And it just shows how a team of people focused on getting to the end game were able to get this through the town to make sure that you know, whatever needed to happen, happened. And then, you know, unbeknownst to us, Hale was working to put the solar array in the landfill. So it's really a win-win to the town, and I thank everybody. You may, Ms. Lisbon.
So, no doubt it was a team effort, but every team needs a leader. And I think the town needs to thank you, Robin, for your leadership in this, not only in bringing it to the Long Range Planning Committee in the first place, but providing leadership to them as everything is being worked. And then if it wasn't for your leadership in grabbing the reins towards the end to get those agreements done, we would not be a green community. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. This was a labor of love for me. I am very passionate about our environment, and this is just a little thing that we can do to keep it for our children and grandchildren. So thank you. I appreciate that. So we're going to sign it?
Vote to authorize execution by the chair.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to vote.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And I am very excited because tomorrow morning I am getting a tour of the site.
Nice.
So we have two appointments this evening. The first one is to appoint Jim McLaughlin as to the Conservation Commission to fill the vacancy of Kate Faulkner. So I don't know him, but you may know him, Candace.
No, but it's wonderful.
Right, again, thank you, Mr. McLaughlin, and I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jim McLaughlin as the associate member to the Conservation Commission.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then we have another appointment this evening, and this is to the Open Space Committee. And it's Mark Adamczyk, and he is going to take the place of Mark Bush, who just completed his term. And I would like to, first of all, thank Mark Bush for spending time on the Open Space Committee. As always, we really appreciate the citizens of Dover participating in these committees. And I would like to thank Mark Adamczyk for volunteering to be a member of the Open Space Committee. So I'd like to make a motion to accept Mark Adamczyk to nominate him for a 3-year term.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And thank you, Mark. And thank you, Mona, for giving me the phonetics pronunciation of his name. Much appreciated. So we have a prior notice.
One of our boilers went down over at the Carroll Community Center 3 or 4 weeks ago. And obviously we need to have those boilers operating to provide a reliable source of heat. So this is a prior notice for that $7,500 unexpended expense, unanticipated expense, excuse me. Hopefully we won't need the money, but we may.
So currently there are excess funds in the account, but we still have a few more months until the end of the fiscal year, so this is one of those precautionary. So we vote on this, right?
Yes.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to vote on the $7,500 prior notice.
Second.
For the purposes as mentioned by Mr. Ramsey. All in favor?
Aye. I have a question. As this work is being done, how does that play into our anticipated replacement of the boilers?
Well, it just helps to buy time until fiscal 19, where we hope to receive the funding that we're working on actually go down the following year. So this just tries to keep things.
It's a Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid.
Okay, I understand.
Well, we would have to shut the building down if they heat, so it's necessary.
Right.
Yeah, you have no
two
choice.
boilers,
Right.
So one runs, but
Right.
they're both the same age, so
Right.
it's a good idea.
Right.
Oh, we have spare parts.
They're even older than I am.
Right.
That's possible.
They don't make them like they used to.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, so then we have a number of special licenses. So we have one retroactive one going back to April the 8th for a shower at Elm Bank, one for April 22nd, a memorial service at Elm Bank, one for April 30th, a wedding at Elm Bank, and one for May 11th at the Dover Town Library, an event honoring the library volunteers. All of these, as always, have been signed off by Chief McGowan. You know, the one thing I have noticed is sometimes the programs at the library have gotten so popular that, you know, their cars parked, I don't know what the name of that road is, it always confuses me, but they have cars like really lined up for people
That's
attending the
essentially
program.
Devon Street.
It is?
Yeah.
So you have cars going all the way down.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the 4 licenses.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And then, just one of the items, I've received a couple of emails and citizens have been asking about whether or not we're going to vote on certain warrant articles. So I don't know if the board, I can't remember from year to year whether we take votes on articles or we just discuss them. So I'm not.
You do both.
Okay.
Sometimes you choose to vote, sometimes you choose
Okay.
not to vote.
So, you know, perhaps we're running out of time. At our next meeting, we can figure out what needs to be done. And then lastly, it's citizens' comments. And I was given a citizen's comment. So, John, you were too. Maybe I've been doing all the talking this evening. You can make the announcement. Right.
Registry of Deeds. William P. O'Donnell, Register, Dover Office Hours, Thursday, May 11th, 2017, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. The Dover Townhouse Selectmen's Meeting Room at 5 Springdale Avenue. And the Register and the members of his staff will be available to help answer questions, concerns about any Registry of Deed matter. Information will be available concerning the Massachusetts Homestead Act, and internet-ready computers will be on hand to print a registry recorded deed, confirm the status of a mortgage discharge, or check on any other filings. No appointment is needed.
So this is very useful because I don't know if you've ever not had something discharged correctly. It is very painful to get it discharged.
Does a homestead have to be recorded and acted upon
I believe it does.
by each homeowner in each refinancing or financing of each mortgage?
I don't know if it's in the financing and refinancing, but.
Isn't that funny? I thought it was on the title.
I thought so too.
Office hours on May 11th.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Thank you, Dave. I was going to say that.
Right.
And for those of you who
Let
would
us
like
know
that
that-
information,
Right.
I will see you there. We will all see you there.
That's right.
So one last thing, I just want to remind all citizens of Dover, there's a lot of information on the website. The Blue Book is going to go out. There's a lot of information in that. I strongly suggest you look at the Blue Book and
Right.
also go onto the website for additional information so that you come to town meeting
Right.
well prepared.
Well, and may I add also, about the Blue Book, because we are reordering the
Excellent
articles, that is being addressed inside the Blue Book. So when you receive your Blue Book,
Open
it, because it will explain to you if you are counting on a particular article going in order, you may get to the meeting too late. You may have missed a discussion and a vote on an article you particularly care about. So you want to open the Blue Book and check the order.
May I add one other item that will be new to this year's town meeting? The electronic clickers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Madam Chair will be providing a tutorial at the beginning of town meeting on the use of the electronic clicker.
I think the town moderator, green and red.
The
And for
idea,
those that are colorblind, there's an X and an O. So,
and the idea of the electronic clicker is to dramatically enhance the accuracy of the vote
And the speed.
and the speed.
And to provide privacy
Right,
as
true.
well,
Very good
which
point.
is what a lot of people were upset about.
That's
So
right.
I think I really commend the town clerk and the moderator we're working to find a solution that could help speed things up.
Right.
And we thank all the citizens in advance for reading the blue books and looking at the website, which
Right.
will also help speed. Being informed will really help the process as well.
Would you like to know which articles are being moved up? I think we put it on the website.
Right.
Tell us.
So after Article 5, which is capital budgets, it's the air conditioning system at the Chickering School, the 3 articles related to the rail trail, and the citizens petition, and the recycling committee's pay-as-you-throw article. Those will follow, so fairly early in the evening.
And then
Then we'll
then
go
it
back
reverts back
to the normal order, that's right. Well, then the moderator will take up Article 6.
And we need to remind everybody that any article can be reconsidered.
That's
Within
right.
30 minutes
Thank
of the
you.
vote, it's 50%. After a majority, after that, it's 2/3.
Right.
And so it's really important, if you're passionate about an article,
Come and
to
stay.
to stay, to
Right.
make arrangements to stay.
And if it were to run into a second evening,
You need to come back, right?
right, because there may also be
Each
a
article.
motion to reconsider any of the articles.
So have we, in the history of Dover, had a town meeting last 2 nights, or has it, so,
Very rare.
okay, we have, what about 3?
No, I think it was, the reason behind this was to take some of the articles that might engender more discussion
Right.
earlier in the evening.
So people are less
Right.
crabby.
That's right.
Let's call a spade a spade.
That's right.
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 Right, well, it's late this evening. I thank everybody, and,
Thank you. Thank you.
so we need a motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.